Sylvester Turner, Congressional District of Texas. As he wants help by transformative leaders such as Congressman Sylvester Turner, Congressman Sylvester Turner.
Thank you so very, very much. Let me start by thanking everyone for joining us on this Tele-Town Hall meeting, whichever form of media streaming. The snow and we're not at the Capitol, so we're going to do this remotely, even my staff, and hopefully things will work very, very well. But because so much is happening, I didn't want to wait until I was at home, let's say for a week in the district. I want to use this form of communication to make sure that we keep you abreast of what's happening as much as possible in real time. But more importantly, it's important that we hear from you and that you hear directly from me. In the last 3 weeks, since the president was sworn in on January the 20th, he has issued 56 executive orders. Let me say 56. And to give you some comparison, during President Biden's entire 4 years, he issued 77. So in about 3.5 weeks, President Trump has issued 56. So he's running the government pretty much by executive orders. We have to speak to that. These executive orders will cover a lot of ground. For example, he's seeking to abolish the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau entirely. And with regards to that agency, if you have, let's say, banks overcharging or companies are ripping you off, this was the agency that you could turn to that would take up your complaint, investigate it, and make sure that that was followed through. So that's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that's being, they're trying to seek to abolish it. With respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion, you've heard a lot about that. He's filed executive orders, and I think there are several of them that pretty much wipes out an attempt to wipe out diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then along with every department, every program that relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion, those employees are being laid off. With respect to immigration, there are at least 9 executive orders on immigration. They plan to use Guantanamo Bay, for example, to house as many as 30,000 people. We don't know if that's 30,000 individuals or whether or not that includes families with their kids. He's trying to end birthright citizenship. Now, that has been put on hold by the courts for now. And I think that is certainly unconstitutional. There are 4 bills dealing with transgender rights. And one, of course, dealing with transgender kids not being able to participate in girls' sports. And there are a number of other measures which say that transgender individuals can't be a part of the military. And so he's moving forward on that front. With respect to the energy sector, we know climate change is real. And for those of us in the city of Houston, on the Gulf Coast, we know how many storms we get on a frequent basis. Now, he's pulling us away from the Paris Climate Accord, which is not good for climate change, mitigating against the risk of climate change. On education, and this is a big one, and that is, as you know, during the campaign, he said he would take action to eliminate the Department of Education. And we anticipate fairly soon that they are going to move forward to try to do just that. Now, let me just pause to say this. This is highly important as it relates to our children, quality education, making sure that there are not disparities in education. So that's important, and we intend to fight with everything we have when it comes to this as well as the other issues. Now, what they are trying to do is also, Republicans, is that they want to trim about $4.7 trillion. And they intend to do that in order to pay for their tax cuts. And so they are moving in that regard. But they can't just do it with the discretionary funding. They will have to touch programs like Medicaid, which provides assistance to over 70 million Americans, primarily children, people with disabilities, and the list goes on and on. And they will have to probably take a look at Social Security as well. That's huge. That's going to be big, and we'll deal with them accordingly. I strongly oppose any cuts to Medicaid, particularly when they are used to pay for tax cuts for the wealthiest of Americans. And in order to achieve that reduction of 4.7 trillion, they have also taken steps to reduce support for our colleges and universities when we start talking about research, biomedical research. This will directly hurt schools like Rice, University of Houston, Texas Southern University, MD Anderson, because up until this point, they are reimbursed for their indirect costs. But what they are, and it could go as much as 62%. What they are proposing, and well, what they do, the executive order, is to slash that all the way down to 15%. That will take away millions of dollars from about 2,000 colleges and universities, medical schools across the country. But for us in the city of Houston, the Texas Medical Center will be hurt. And with those schools there, Rice, Texas Southern, University of Houston, that's huge. And as a consequence, for those people, for example, who are needing research, let me just take cancer, okay? Critical. When you start taking funding away from these institutions, you are directly impacting people who are either diagnosed and being treated with cancer or people that one day may get cancer. So it's important that you understand what they're doing with the National Institute of Health. So when you hear NIH, that's the National Institute of Health, and they are slashing funding from the National Institute of Health. As you know, one of his first measures was to pardon about 1,600 people, insurrectionists that attacked the Capitol, and that included those persons who assaulted some of our police officers. Now, what are we doing? There are three areas: legislation, litigation, and civic mobilization. A part of today's call is dealing with civic mobilization. We need to hear from you. And not just if you're a Democrat calling Democrats. If you are a Democrat, call Republicans. If you are Republicans, call people across the board. We need civic mobilization, because what's important here is that people are saying there is a mandate for all of this. Well, that's not, only the people themselves can speak to that. The other part is dealing with legislation. And I will be asking you to be supportive of the Taxpayer Data Protection Act that was filed by the ranking member, the leader of the Democratic Party, along with several others. And this goes to what you have been hearing, that they took over the United States through executive order. Elon Musk and his, his people, took over the United States Treasury And we're talking about a department that processes about $6 trillion annually. They took over that department. They got all of the data, the information, things like on your Social Security, when you're filing your taxes and being paid, Medicare, Medicaid, all of that information, your information, is now in the hands of Elon Musk and his people. In response to that, we are have filed a bill, the Taxpayer Protection Act, that we're encouraging all members of Congress to support. Now, let me just say this. This is not a Democratic or Republican issue. I don't think people, I don't care who you are, want your private, confidential information in the hands of people who have not been vetted, not gone through a security clearance. You don't know how the information is going to be used or how it will be abused. So we need to protect your personal information. So so it's litigation, it's legislation, and it's civic mobilization. Now, the courts have stepped up. About 40 different lawsuits have already been filed. The courts have put a hold on this whole claim of birthright citizenship not being legitimate. The courts have said hold on that. With respect to Elon Musk and his people taking over the Treasury Department, the courts have stepped in, put a hold on that, and said you've gone too far. When they were attempting to stop all federal grants, loans, and financial assistance, which would include like the Houston Food Bank or Meals on Wheels, the courts have stepped in and said you've gone too far. When they, through executive order, stopped assistance to U.S. aid, that is foreign assistance to other countries, quite frankly, that is a direct benefit to the United States. They sought to eliminate about 10,000 employees in that regard. The federal judge has stepped in and said, no, we're going to put a halt on that. And there has been an attempt to try to buy out federal employees. These are dedicated workers who are at work, working on behalf of people, an attempt to kind of buy them out. And the federal judge has stepped in and put a halt on that. So right now, the litigation is very active. We are supportive of those litigation measures, and it will be taking place quite a bit over the next several months, if not years to come. I want to hold there. There's a whole lot I could say, but I just kind of want to give you a sense. The issues are real. This is not a movie. This is not a dream. It is real. And with all of that being said, you are still paying the same for your milk, your eggs, your bacon, your mortgage, your rent, and in many cases, because of the tariffs, all of your costs will be going up. I don't care what people said in 24. The measures that they are taking now will drive up your day-to-day costs. And for thousands of Americans, especially federal workers, they are losing their jobs and their situation is getting worse. So I want you to understand the magnitude of what we're facing and that we are here standing up for you. Now, let me pause for a second. I asked Francisco Sanchez, who used to be with emergency management with Harris County, and then he was a high-level person with the Small Business Administration. He's been assisting and following some of this stuff, and I would like Francisco just to speak on the impact when it comes to FEMA and crisis management.
Great. Thank you, Congressman, for that introduction, and congratulations on being named to serve on the Homeland Security Committee. Your experience there is going to be absolutely valuable to Congress and the work that we're doing. The Congress mentioned the 56 executive orders. 16 see that almost a third of those are focused on reshaping the federal government or immigration or national security. There was a pause to that. Unfortunately, that has not stopped some federal agencies. That's a lot of executive orders to keep up with. I will just highlight something that happened just yesterday and continues into the day. This is no longer just an idea of the Trump administration. FEMA, as of yesterday, has now paused the distribution of grants going back to fiscal year 21. So for Houston 21, 22, 23, 24, that's $24 million. All those now are on a pause. And so this is dangerous. The FBI and across the country, Houston is the only community that has all of those 18 categories in our community. So this is alarming. It certainly weakens our ability to protect and respond. So we're tracking that closely. When it comes to FEMA and disaster, the president has said that he would like to see FEMA abolished. He also recently announced that there would be a 20-person commission to review how to do that or make other recommendations. They said it would take a year. But hurricane season is just 3.5 months away. Just last week, the DHS secretary, that her recommendation is to abolish FEMA. That's important because the DHS secretary, FEMA reports directly to her. Potentially, as the president said, he would like for states, quote, to take care of their own problems. And for a Houston perspective, from wildfires to winter storms to floods, from heat waves to power outages, are the things that we deal with here regularly, and we average, unfortunately, a presidentially declared disaster about every 9 months. We need our federal partners, and we responded here to Hurricane Harvey when he was mayor. The congressman led us to that locally. 10,000 square miles, 51 inches of rain in some areas, and more than 200,000 homes were impacted. We can't do that alone. And so I want to understand really the magnitude of what this means on a budget side. I have spoken to state directors across this country, from red states to blue states, and no one thinks that's a good idea. Just think about Houston last year when we went through Beryl, 820 into the hands of disaster survivors, 280 million in the hands of disaster survivors here for the derecho. Just last year alone, that's over $1 billion in the hands of folks in Houston impacted by disasters. That doesn't even include the money FEMA spends on food, water, and ice, firefighters, high water rescue vehicles, and all those things that we stage. And so what it means if we cut back FEMA is it will likely mean that they will not fund at the federal level resilience and mitigation. So we won't be able to build back in a way that's stronger in the face of the storms to come. And no jurisdiction, state or city, we can do a lot here in Houston because we're good at it, but no one has the capacity to do what FEMA does. Even if the federal government cuts a check, we have no way to manage those kinds of billions of dollars without scaling up and taking time to get that in the hands of those doing the hard work. And no one has the scale that FEMA has. One of the benefits they have is the scale. They have billions of dollars in assets that are ready to deploy the food, water, and ice that can get here to Houston on a moment's notice. A state doesn't have that contracting ability. And I want you to think back what we saw during COVID, when we saw states fighting over and not trying to outbid each other for masks, sanitizer, medical equipment, doctors, and nurses. What happens if we have a storm hit here one week, another one in Louisiana the following, and we're competing for resources? And as busy as hurricane season gets, that's a very harsh reality. And at the breakneck pace at which these are rolling out, we don't have the kind of time to prepare to take on that kind of responsibility. The congressman mentioned some litigation. You will see some states or nonprofits sue the federal government, and they try to do that with FEMA. That just delays assistance. And so that's incredibly challenging. It burdens the response now from being federally supported, state managed, and locally executed, would potentially just be the federal government writing a check. But that doesn't account for the laws that need to be in place, the planning that needs to happen here locally. And at the same time, we got the Texas legislature that's meeting. Will they need to make policy changes when this happens to how the state responds, and they'll long be out of session. So Our local nonprofits will be asked to do more with less, and they will be asked to do new things that they haven't done before. And so our community is the one that will suffer most. And I'll close by the importance of diversity and equity here. The Congressman has said this often: diversity is descriptive and inclusion is intentional. Houston does not recover fully from a disaster if we do not all recover. We've already seen cuts to the programs that value diversity and support of equity. Our hardest hit communities will be marginalized even more when they need us the most. So I know that our local leaders are thinking about this. So I appreciate you, Congressman, making time on the call. I will close because I mentioned it earlier. Hurricane season is just about 100 days away. The best thing that you can do is to be prepared with your plan and your supplies. So no matter what happens, you'll be in better shape for the next disaster strikes.
Thanks, Francisco. Now, let me also say there's a great deal of fear and concern with respect to the non-executive orders that have been issued dealing with immigration and deportation. There was a point in time when churches, hospitals, schools were safe places, and ICE and others would not enter those institutions. Through the executive orders, that is no longer the case. And we're not just talking about people with criminal convictions being deported. We're talking about people who are lawfully here working, not committing any crimes. Dreamers, for example, could run the risk of deportation. So there's a lot of fear and concern with respect to a lot of people as it relates to these executive orders on immigration and deportation. I've asked John Haynes, who's an attorney with NAMEC, Salem and Associates in Houston, to make some remarks in this regards. John?
Good evening, Congressman, and thank you for this opportunity to address the constituents of the 18th District. It's part of the Harris County and the Houston cities that host and have a large group of immigrants, both that have status and those that don't have legal status. And the news from the beginning of the year have been of concern for those peoples. Thank you for your stand with immigrations and immigrants that are part of this district. The executive orders that have been signed, and the first act or law that was signed by President is the Langston-Riley Act. It's perhaps the one that has the most consequences for both non-citizens with legal status and those with non-legal status. And it is very important that we understand the extent in which the Langston-Riley Act has on people that would be detained or arrested or even convicted of that crimes. It's important because not all the law enforcement officers will have clarity unless they have better trained and execute their orders correctly. So that's perhaps one of the most important ones. The other one is how ICE have been given permission to step into schools, churches, and hospitals. And that creates a lot of concerns for parents, for students, children, but also for the elderly that seek the health care that they need in hospitals. So what we have done, and a lot of immigration attorneys in Houston, are to advise about what rights do non-citizens and citizens as well have when they're confronted with situations. Because the issue is that even the appearance of a person could be used as probable cause to start a detention. And it seems like, from the Middle Ages that one, because of the color of the skin or the way they're dressed, are stopped by police officers making inquiries about their legal status in the United States. But that is happening, and we need to raise the awareness and let the people know that they have rights. We have had clients in an office that are U.S. citizens, but they come from different backgrounds. They've been naturalized, and they are from Latin American countries, and they speak Spanish. And they've been stopped because they've been speaking Spanish, and they've been perceived as non-citizens who are here without their papers. So I think that now more than ever, education is perhaps the most important tool that we have to prevent egregious opportunities that ICE will continue to have. The other immigration change was the DACA decision by the Fifth Circuit. In Texas is the only state that DACA holders no longer will be able to renew their status. DACA holders will have DACA status, meaning they have their work permit and all the other benefits until their expiration dates in their cards. And that's only in the state of Texas. And it seems like it's not true, but that is what the Fifth Circuit decided, and that's what the state of Texas had argued before that court, that Texas was harmed by DACA holders, and therefore they needed it, or that provision of DACA needed to be declared illegal. So, Congressman, thank you for the opportunity. I'm sure this is not going to be the last time that immigration will have a section in your town hall, because we're sure that we will be seeing a lot more as the new administration start implementing and start perhaps creating other executive orders pertaining immigration. Lastly, the TPS, the temporary protected status, also will be ending for Venezuelans. That's about 500,000 Venezuelans in the U.S. It's estimated that about 100,000 are here in Houston. And those are people that have work permits and contribute and pay taxes and have businesses, and they will be without status as of April 2nd. For all the TPS holders, only the El Salvador has been renewed for their re-registration. So there is still more to come, but the best tool to be prepared is to be educated. And if you have questions, we advise people to contact an immigration attorney, one that's nearby and is licensed either in the state of Texas or in the U.S. We discourage people to visit notarios or notaries that are not licensed to provide assistance in court or before the immigrations department like USCIS or the courts and ICE. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Let me just say, I'll be having another town hall, an in-person town hall next week on Wednesday, February the 19th at 6 p.m. At the Spring office location on Know Your Rights and a further discussion dealing with immigration and deportation. And I invite all of you to come and be a part of that. That will be an in-person town hall meeting on February the 19th at 6 p.m. Now, at this point, let me turn it back to the moderator, and we'll start taking questions from you all.
Thank you, Congressman. Again, if you would like to ask a question live, we invite you to press *3 on your phone keypad to enter the queue. Congressman, we'll go ahead and start with some online questions. First, we have Philip, who would like to know what the elected officials in Congress and Supreme Court are doing to stop Trump and Musk from this hostile takeover of government agencies. Does Elon Musk have my personal information?
Let me just say, just today on the floor of the House of Representatives, I spoke about Elon Musk and his minions taking over the U.S. Treasury Department, and they have access to your data, to your information regarding your Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, your taxpayer information, all of that. We are vehemently opposed to that. I spoke against that on the floor today. And then that's why we are asking you to give your support to the Taxpayer Protection Act. That is to protect your Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of your personal confidential information that it was already in the hands of the U.S. Treasury Department. We don't know who these people are. They now have your information. We don't know what the intent is, how they intend to use it. They don't have your consent. So I'm deeply concerned about that. And in fact, we all should be concerned. So all the Democrats, for example, are sponsoring that bill, and we are hopeful that Republicans will join in as well. Right now, on the Republican side, they are standing down. There is no accountability, no questions being at least publicly asked by Republicans in the United States House of Representatives or in the Senate. So we really, Republicans control the House, the Senate, of course, and the White House. So we really need the Republican leadership, the members, to stand up and say whether they support these measures, don't, and if they support them, why. But there needs to be accountability. Those measures will continue. Of course, we're very active now in the courts. We're working with a number of organizations and filing these lawsuits, unions, labor, you name it. About 40 lawsuits have been filed at the district court level, and those will be, I'm sure the president will appeal and may eventually get up to the United States Supreme Court. But for right now, the federal judges are putting a hold on many of these executive orders, but so many are coming out. Every single day, there are executive orders that are coming out. It's important for us to stay focused and to be very strategic and to draw the line on these measures. So legislation, litigation, and then, of course, that's why it's important. Even when they shut down, told all our employees to go home at 2 o'clock today, we wanted this telephone town hall to still take place because the civic mobilization, the education, are all critical components.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll move on to a poll question now. Now, with all that is going on in Washington, D.C., we know it's hard to break through the noise, but we want to hear from you. We're going to ask a series of poll questions during tonight's event. If you're on the phone, you can vote by pressing the corresponding number on your keypad. If you're online, you can vote by selecting your response below the streaming player. Our first question is, what issues are important to you that the Congress member can focus on to make your life better? Press 1 for housing affordability, press 2 for healthcare access, press 3 for jobs and increasing wages, and press 4 for protecting Social Security and Medicare. Once again, the question is, what issues are important to you that the congressman can focus on to make your life better? Press 1 for housing affordability, 2 for healthcare access, 3 for jobs and increasing wages, and 4 for protecting Social Security and Medicare. And once again, we do invite you to press star 3 at any time if you'd like to ask a question to the Congressman live. For those results coming, we'll move on to our next submitted question online. Sylvia asks, well, she's concerned that the president is trying to end birthright citizenship. How is she affected?
Well, she is absolutely correct. He's trying to end it. And he tried to do so through an executive order. A federal judge has blocked that. If you are born in America, you are an American. That's in the Constitution. I've been a lawyer for 40 years. I think he wants this issue, to get up to the Supreme Court. I really think that's the intent. because I think any first-year law student knows that if you're born in America, you are an American. Now, if you eliminate birthright citizenship, then you're talking about denying citizenship to about 150,000 children every single year. That's 150,000 every single year. 3 separate judges have blocked Trump's EO to end birthright citizenship. This is an issue that possibly could end up before the United States Supreme Court.
Thank you, Congressman. We'll go ahead and move on to one more online question before we move on to more questions and poll results. Next, Morgan writes that they're worried about the budget cuts to the NIH and how it will affect medical research. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, and so am I. Look, my number one priority in running for this office and being here in Congress is health care, access to quality health care. In the 18th Congressional District, in one zip code, the life expectancy is 20 years less than the neighboring zip code. In the 18th Congressional, we're dealing with the cancer cluster, and people who are being diagnosed and dying from cancer in that greater Fifth Ward community. Healthcare research, biomedical research, is critical. And so any attempt to slash funding from the National Institute of Health, number one, will put us in a, really it goes right at our families, moms, dads, and our children. This, I can't tell you, express how foolish this attempt is. It will impact about 2,000 colleges and universities across the country. It will impact the Texas Medical Center, Texas Southern Rice, University of Houston, just to name a few. So this is a major issue for me. It should be a major issue for all of us. When you're talking about slashing the indirect appropriation, and not just future dollars, but current and future dollars, from 62% coverage down to 15%. So I'm very much concerned. It will impact MD Anderson, and literally people come from all over the globe to be treated by MD, and they have some amazing research. So this is one where we draw the line, and I'll do everything I can to make sure that this does not become a reality.
Great, thank you, Congressman. More poll results in. I'll go ahead and share those. The question was, what issues are important to you that the Congressman can focus on to make your life better? The results came in with housing affordability at 7%, healthcare access at 11%, jobs with increase in wages at 13%, and protecting Social Security and Medicare came in at a whopping 69%. We'll load up our next poll question here shortly. I'll take this opportunity to remind everyone that if you'd like to ask a question to the Congressman live, please press *3 at any time, and we'll get you in a queue. Congressman, if it's okay with you, I'm happy to move on to take some live callers with their questions.
Sure.
Great. We'll go ahead and we'll start off with Savannah M. Savannah, you are live with the Congressman. Please go ahead with your question.
My question is to gain a little bit of clarity. You did talk about Medicaid, just one of the things on the executive order. What is it still currently blocked, or has the judge lifted it, or what's the status currently on? Is that part of the block, or it's not?
That is part of the block. Federal judge has put a hold on that for now. We hope it will become permanent. There are several concerns here. When they took over, and I just don't want to keep focusing on Elon Musk and his minions, because at the end of the day, this falls at the lap of the president. So, we have to be very careful here that we stay focused, because the president can disengage himself from Elon Musk at any point in time and just blame all of this on Elon Musk. This is happening at the desk with the signature of the president. And at the same time, right now, the Republican majority, they are silent on all of these issues. Now, what's happening is that when they took over the U.S. Treasury Department, which contains your Social Security information, Medicaid, Medicare information, tax information, these individuals who have not been vetted, they haven't been screened, we don't know who they are, they now have access of that information. And what the federal judge has done is stepped in and say, no, hold, we're not going down this road at this time, because that jeopardizes all of us. I don't care who you are. You can be a conservative Republican, you can be a progressive Democrat, you can be in the center. Who wants their information in the hands of some technocrats who have not been elected, who have not been screened and vetted, and you don't know how your information is going to be used, and you haven't given your consent? That's one problem. Now, the other thing that's taking place is that the president is looking to how he can fund, and Republicans, how can they fund their tax cut proposal? So they're looking to cut $4.7 trillion. In order to fund their tax cut proposal, you just can't eliminate the low-hanging fruit, your discretionary funding. They will have to go to Medicaid and possibly Social Security. So as much as they have said, we're not going to touch Social Security, they kind of hedged on touching Medicaid. If you're going to provide these tax cuts that will benefit people who are billionaires and the Elon Musk of the world and all these others, they will have to cut Medicaid and Social Security. And Medicaid touches 70 million Americans, primarily people with disabilities, children, and others. So this is one of those areas that we draw the line. And for many of us, when my dad died of cancer, my family benefited from those Social Security benefits. That's one of the ways I made it through college. So I know what it means to be without, to not have health insurance or private health insurance. This issue is major, and it's important for us to stand up collectively and say, no, not in America. It's not going to happen. We're not going to let you do it. But in order for that to happen, in order for us to hold the line, we need the civic mobilization, the litigation, as well as the legislation. Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Congressman. We'll move on to our next caller. Next, we have Barbara M. on the line, who has a question regarding the GOP. Barbara, you are live with the Congressman. Please go ahead with your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Barbara.
Yes, ma'am. You're live with the Congressman.
Oh, thank you. I guess my question is, I need a battle plan because, every day when I read the news, there's something I have to call about. So what do I do? Are my calls making a difference? Is there something else I should be doing? I've recruited friends, I've recruited my church, but is there anything else I can do besides calling or writing letters because, Cruz and Cornyn are my biggest obstacles.
Well, Barbara, let me say this. You keep calling Senator Cruz and Senator Cornyn and the other Republicans as well. Your calling does make a difference, especially when Republicans and President Trump and others are saying the election gave them a mandate to do this. It is important that people email, send texts, blow up their email accounts here in the Halls of Congress, get on social media. Like tonight, we're having this conversation. Follow us. Follow me. That's important. Let people know that you participated in this town hall meeting and how important it is. And we have to stand up. We just can't wait until the next election. Okay? We can do things right now. This is still our country. Okay? It's our country. These are our children. We have people working every single day to earn a living. People that need health care, need housing, on Social Security, on Medicaid or Medicare. So your voice does matter. And I don't want anyone to come to the conclusion that your voice doesn't count. Yes, it does. Okay? So please encourage your friends, your relatives, your church members, organizational leaders, have a campaign within your own organization and say, we are going to blow up their social media, and we're going to blow up their emails, send it to your friends, and send it to those who are not as friendly, okay? Because at the end of the day, we're going to need Democrats and Republicans standing up and saying you've gone too far. So please get active, continue your activism. Do not stop.
Great, thank you, Congressman. We'll take one more question live before we go on to the next poll question. Next, we have Reverend Davis on the line, who has a question regarding veterans. Reverend Davis, you're live with the Congressman. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you. Congressman Turner, thank you so much for giving us this platform. I greatly appreciate giving the community a voice. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Reverend Davis.
Okay. So my question revolves around benefits, veteran benefits, especially disability.
Yes.
So our disabled vets, should we heighten our concern regarding our disability, income?
And the answer is yes. With all of these executive orders, 56, and the number is growing every day. Every American is impacted by these executive orders. When they initially came out and they wanted to put a hold on all federal loans, grants, and financial assistance, veterans, as well as law enforcement, were impacted by that widespread sweeping executive order that they put out. So much so, and the outcry came, they tried to walk some of it back. But it was the federal judge that put a hold to it. They tried to walk it back a little bit, but they didn't take it off the books. So veterans are impacted. When you start talking about all the benefits, the healthcare benefits, the funding to the National Institute of Health, veterans are impacted. When you start talking about programs to address homelessness, you have veterans, for example, who are homeless on our streets. They are impacted. So no group is immune to what's happening here in DC.
Thank you for that. We have our next poll question queued up. And this question is, president or king? Do you believe that President Trump overreached his authority with his 56 now executive orders? Press 1 for yes. Press 2 for no. Again, do you believe that President Trump overreached his authority with his 56 executive orders so far? Please press 1 for yes and press 2 for no. While the results come in, we'll go ahead and move forward with another live caller. Next, we'll move to Julie. Julie has another question about the GOP. Julie, you're live with the Congressman. Please go ahead with your question.
Thank you for taking my question. You started to address it, Congressman Turner, about the civic engagement, because a lot of us are feeling like it must we can get the Republicans in Congress to start doing their job and act like an independent member, part of our government. Nothing's going to happen to, I'm afraid, to stop him. I know the courts are going to try, but we know what's going on at the Supreme Court, and it's...
Julie?
Julie, are you still with us?
Julie, did you leave? Let me just say that...
Yeah, it looks like we lost Julie, but we'll see if we can get her back.
Okay.
I think we got most of her question in.
Yes, let me just say, Julie, when I spoke today on the floor of the House afterwards, I was talking with some Republicans. There are Republicans who do not want their information, confidential, private, personal information, in the hands of people that they do not know. And Republicans are speaking up too. And I'm not talking about members of Congress. I'm talking about people in the city of Houston and other places. This is an issue when it comes to taxpayer data information that should be nonpartisan, should cut across all lines, and people's personal private information should be protected. So this is an issue, I think, where you can talk to Republicans and encourage them to contact their congressperson and ask them to do the right thing. That we do not want our information in the hands of people we do not know, who have not been vetted, who have not been cleared.
Great, thank you, Congressman. And on that, we have our results from our second poll question. Again, the question was, do you believe that President Trump has overreached his authority? 99% said yes. And 1% say no. Again, 99% believe that President Trump has, in fact, overreached his authority.
Well, I think that's...
Go ahead and we'll move on to our next... I'm sorry?
No, go on.
So thank you. We'll move on to our next caller here in the queue. We have Neil Kawana, who has a question regarding the education system. Kawana, you're live with the Congressman. Please go ahead with your question.
Hi, my question is there anything or what can we do to be proactive in regards to the dissemination of the education system?
Well, it is important to make sure that we speak up in support of the Department of Education, because they are charged with making sure that we provide quality, equitable education to all students, regardless of who they are, where they live, what's their socioeconomic background. The Department of Education also provides needed grants to schools, to school districts across this country. They are the ones, for example, who make sure that there are not any civil rights, human violations that are taking place within our school system. So the Department of Education is critical for our children. And I would like to believe that this is one area where we can stand up together and say, take your hands off the Department of Education. Now they made it clear for many years that they want the Department of Education eliminated, and they want the power transferred all the way back to the states. I want you to think about that for a moment. I don't think it's in the best interest of our kids for that to happen. So we really need to draw the line on them trying to eliminate the Department of Education.
Okay, thank you, Congressman. I believe we have time for one more live question. Next, we'll go on to Gloria. There's another question about birthright. Gloria, you are live with the Congressman. Please go ahead with the question.
Yes, how you doing? How you doing, Sylvester? It's a pleasure speaking with you today.
Well, same here, Gloria.
Okay, the reason the question I'm asking is when Donald Trump says the birthrights of America, what he meaning by birthright? It means by the Hispanic or the ones that's living across seas coming to America, or that's what he means about that, or what he means?
What he's simply saying is that in order for the child to be able to claim birthright citizenship, that person should come from, let's say, mom who's already an American, who's been living here, and the mom has citizenship already. He's seeking to exclude any child that's born in America, on American soil, trying to exclude that child from having birthright citizenship if that mom is coming from someplace else. It is within our Constitution that says that birthright citizenship is given to anyone that's born in this country. Okay? I don't care how you got here. I don't care when you got here. If a kid is born on U.S. soil, it has been our practice, our constitutional right. Let me go beyond practice. It's been our constitutional right that kid is a United States citizen. I think you can talk to law professors all over the country, and there's pretty much unanimous consent, or close to it, on that issue. He's seeking to reverse that. He wants to change that. But that is written in our Constitution by our forefathers. And the only way you're going to change it is that you need to change the United States Constitution. But he cannot do it by the stroke of a pen on an executive order.
Thank you, Congressman. We're nearing the end of our session. I'd like to hand it over to you just in case you have any closing comments before I get more details and say good night to everybody.
Well, number one, let me thank each and every one of you, the thousands of you who have participated on this call. And I mean, there have been thousands who have participated in one way, form or another. So thank you for taking the time to do that. I want to certainly thank my staff. They're positioned all over DC because of the snow and the weather situation. So I want to thank them for working to put this together, and everyone on the team. And let me ask you to follow me at Rep, that's capital R-E-P, capital S, capital T, Turner. If you would follow me, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, and again, that's at Rep, capital R-E-P, capital S, capital T, U-R-N-E-R. So at Rep S Turner, with the S-T being caps, if you will follow me. But look, I'm here to do my job. I appreciate the support, the trust you have placed in me. we're living through some unprecedented times. I don't think it's been a long time. You might have to go back to President Andrew Johnson since we faced a situation like we're facing today. Information is important, communication is important, and I want to make sure that I communicate with you as often as I can in a very substantive way. Whether we're in person, we thought we would try this medium to see how effectively it would work. Let me just say no one is excluded. I don't care if you're a woman, male, LGBTQIA, transgender, middle income, homeless, working every day, part of labor, the unions, teachers, doctors, lawyers, nurses. We're all in this situation together. And with all that has been done in the last, last month, when you go to the store, they're not charging you less. And when you're paying your mortgage, you're not paying less. That's what I think one reason why people voted for the president was to improve their quality of living and to lower their costs. Not all of these other issues that we're dealing with right now. So I want to thank you for taking the time to be with me tonight. And please, I want to hear from you. And I want to make sure that I'm representing you and your families. That's what's important. If I'm doing that, then everything else will fall in place. But I intend to stand and to keep talking as long as I have a voice to do that. So thank you so very, very much.
Great. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you for all your work. We have one more poll question we'll get to before we close. And it's regarding unfiltered access. Should unelected billionaires have access to your sensitive treasury data, including Social Security and Medicare payment systems? And should unelected billionaires have access to your sensitive treasury data, including Social Security and medical payment systems? Press 1 for yes, and press 2 for no. As we take a moment for those results to come in, we'd like to again thank you for joining us. These events are here to give you, our constituents, the opportunity to speak directly and have dialogue with the Congressman. And we were able to discuss the vast number of executive orders issued by President Trump and the related issues on your mind. Looks like we have the poll questions up. Poll answers up. Again, that question was, should unelected billionaires have access to your sensitive treasury data, including Social Security and Medicare payments? 97% of the respondents said no, and 95% said no, and 5% said yes. So 95% said that unelected billionaires should not have access to the data, and 5% said yes. Again, as we come to the end of our live event, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us for this important telephone town hall with Representative Sylvester Turner. We had a lot of questions tonight, and if we were not able to get your question this evening, we would like to answer it. And you can leave a voicemail after the event and call our office at 713-655-0050. Again, you could stay on the line and leave a voicemail after the event, or call our office at 713-655-0050. We'll most certainly host more of these events in the future, including in-person events, as the Congressman said earlier. And we'll do that to keep you informed on what we are working on and other important updates. Thank you again for joining us this evening. Have a good night.